Hello there everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make your own Celtic knot wirework chain, and it can look something like this. So this is the chain that I've ended up with, and I've also added beads to it. You can obviously leave them out if you want to, but I just think they give a nice extra touch and a bit of colour in there as well, and just breaks up all the individual knots. So these are the knots themselves that are then turned into a chain, and this one is a nice necklace length. You can obviously use it on its own, it's really nice like that, or you can use it for a pendant that you made. It would also be really nice for a bracelet, maybe even a multi-wrap bracelet. So it's a nice, quite delicate chain depending what materials that you use. So if you want to learn how to make this chain, then keep watching. So these are the things that I'm going to demonstrate with. Now we need our wire first of all. This is just regular round wire, and I'm working with a 0.8mm and it's just a copper colour. You can choose other wires to work with, so say a thicker gauge or a thinner gauge. The technique will be exactly the same, you'll just get a slightly different look. So for instance, if you use a 1mm, you'll get a bit of a chunkier look. If you use a 0.6mm instead of this 0.8, you'll get a bit of a finer look. So that's completely up to you. And then the beads that I'm using here is some 3mm blue coated hematite. And I just wanted to use some that weren't too big, so it's a little bit delicate. But obviously you still have to make sure the hole in whatever beads you're using can take the wire that you're using as well. So I know that my 0.8mm will go through the holes in these ones. You might want to choose larger or even smaller beads, that's completely up to you. And colour wise I just thought the blue and the copper will go nicely together as well. So let's get the things together and let's get started. So then basically what we need to do is start working with one length of wire at a time, and then building our links as we go. This is just the 0.8mm, and it really doesn't matter how long a length you work with. Personally I prefer to work with longer lengths, because then you can use the same length of wire for multiple lengths, so you have less wastage as well. But you can use anything from say 50cm to a metre at a time. It's really mostly what you're comfortable with. So then to start making a first link, we take this piece of wire that we're going to be working with first, and just make sure you don't have any kinks or bends in it. It's fine if it has a curve like this naturally, but just make sure it has no obvious kinks in it so it's straightened out. Then what we need to do is, I'm working towards the middle of our wire here, just to begin with. So I have one end down here and the other end coming up the other way here. And then towards the middle of it, what I'm going to do is put a bit of a bend with a nice curve, so not an obvious corner or anything, but a curve, so we get almost like a bit of a teardrop shape like this, and then we want to overlap this going over the other tail, so like that. And then what we need to do is come back around again, so I need to then encourage my wire to go the opposite direction with a curve, so just use your fingers a bit and have it come back away the other way around. And then what we need to do with this tail is come underneath the other one. So we have original tail making our teardrop shape, and then having the tail go over the first one, going back the other way, and then go under. So it looks like this. And then we need to come all the way back up, so you almost have a bit of an end sign like this. And then we take the rest of this tail, the very tip of it, and put it through the original loop that we made. And then just basically gently start pulling it all together and tighten it up. And you can just maneuver it in place. Make sure you don't get any hard bends in there, but it will keep the nice curves. Just gently pull them so it becomes smaller and tighter. And basically you can stop whenever you want to. It depends how large you want your links. You can pull it really tight as it'll go, if you want them quite fine and small, or you can leave it more open, that's completely up to you. I like them quite small myself, so quite tight, and also to not get the links too big, but like I said, that's up to you, personal choice. What you can also do, because it can be a little bit hard to keep gripping on the wire, you can then take some flat nose or chain nose pliers on each side of the knot there then, because your pliers can grip onto the wire much better than your fingers can. And then just pull with them, and that can give you that extra grip to really get a nice and even knot. So there we have the knot itself. So what we need to do now is finish off the ends, but also add in the beads to this link. So for this, what I'm going to do is take my chain nose or flat nose pliers again, and just start with one side of the knot at a time, because we have these long tails coming out now. That's where we want to add our beads as well. Now what I just like to do is, as you can see, this is what the knot looks like, but the wires are kind of coming out at a slight angle. So what I like to do is right where the knot ends and that wire comes out, I like to just put my pliers right there and just put a little bit of a bend. So just to make your wire come straight out from the knot, it's going to just make it sit a bit more straight. The same on the other end. So just a little bit of maneuvering like that. As you can see, it's going to sit much more straight now. And then this is where I want to add my bead. Now you can make these links without adding beads into it, that's completely up to you. The beads will obviously just give it that extra touch of colour, but also if you want to match it to something, say a pendant that you've made and you want to use this as a chain, that's completely up to you. So I'm adding my bead all the way down there, let it drop all the way down. I'm going to take my pliers again, the chain nose, and then about 2 millimeters or so above the bead is where I want to put my bend, because I want to make wrapped loops. And put a bend in there, almost 90-degree angle. And then what I'm going to use now to make my loop is I like using my 6-step bell making pliers, just because I can use a certain point on these and know I get the exact same size loop every time. You can easily use round nose pliers, that's completely fine. I just prefer to use these. Then I'm going to place these with the size that I want right after that angle that I just put in. Then take the rest of this tail, bend it back around. So this is just like making a normal wrap loop, all the way just like that. So you get a circle. And taking the chain nose again. And then we need to fill in that little space we left just above the bead with our wraps. So just about 2 or 3 times, whatever fits. And try and get them as nice and neat as possible. So nice and close. And then on the back here, or wherever the wire finishes, I want to then take my wire cutters, or flush cutters, cut the rest of it off. And you always want to remember to make sure when you cut this off, you're going to find that you have a little piece sticking out the very point where you cut it off. Make sure to always grab your chain nose pliers and press that in, so it really gets tucked in and hidden in there, so you don't have that end sticking out that can catch on anything. Now that's one side of it finished, so it's basically just doing the exact same thing on the other side. Add your bead onto there, let it drop all the way down, so you can almost start to see what the link is going to look like now. And now this really depends on how you want to connect your links together as well. If you want to connect them, make each link say look like this, with obviously the other loop as well, and then connect your links with jump rings. What you can do is have these loops that you're making now face in the same direction. If you want to connect your links without jump rings, what I personally would say is make these loops face in opposite directions. So this one is kind of lying flat, same as the knot is. This one I'm then going to bend the opposite way, so still go just a little bit above that bead, bend it back at an angle, and you can see that is the opposite direction so far. Take my 6-step bell making pliers to make this loop, so I'll make sure it's the exact same size, go all the way around, and as you can see this is going to now lay in the opposite direction. And again, wrap around to seal up this end. And then the same thing, cut off the excess. And then always remember to tuck in that very end, so you can't feel it at all. And you put your finger over it, if you can still feel it, just need to tuck it in a bit more. So that's basically the first link if you want to do it like this. Like I said, you can do it the other way. You want to add jump rings, you just want to face these the same way. If you then by accident face one of the loops the wrong way, it's no big deal either, because if I wanted these to lie flat, both of them in the same direction, what you can always just do is grab the loop that's in the wrong place, facing the wrong way, keep hold of your piece, and then force it to go in the other direction. So it's no problem at all. I just prefer to try and get them right from the beginning. So that's all you got to do. This is now the first link. So what we need to do is obviously continue making our links and then also connect them together as we go. So to then start making the next link, I'm just going to put this out of the way. I'm going to take one of the tails that I cut off. It's still plenty long enough to use to make another link, or maybe even two. So I'm going to keep using this. You can always cut more wire off when you need to as well. And then again, we start from roughly about the middle. We'll make our first bend to kind of get that teardrop shape, where we go over the shorter tail, the original tail. Then we need to come back around with it and come underneath to get that kind of and sign. And then the tail that we've been making our curves with, have it go through the original loop. So just like that, the exact same way as before. Always start out the same way, and then just need to pull these tighter. And just like before, if you need to, you can always grab the ends with your pliers. Now what I like to do as well is kind of always refer back to the ones I've already made, just to make sure I get the same size as good as I can. So pull it and then compare it. See if I'm happy with how that looks. It's just a bit bigger, so I could do with just pulling it a bit more. Compare it again and see. Now that's much better. They're pretty much the same size. So again, I know now I have this knot done. So now all I need to do is start making the loops again. To do the same thing, just correct the angle of where your tails are coming out first to get them going straight. I just like to make sure to do that first so I don't forget. Like that. And then we need to start making our loops and adding the beads. So what I like to do when I then connect my links is, when I make my next link to then connect, the first loop that I'm going to make here, I don't connect it, I connect it in my second one. So I add my bead. I just find it a bit easier to work with that way. Make my loop, and then get the bail making pliers using the exact same size there to get it as consistent as possible. Make my loop on this side, come all the way around. Now what you can do as well is compare every link that you make to make sure you get the loops in the same direction if you connect them directly through the loops and not using jump rings. But like I said before, it's not a big deal because you can always just change the direction if you need to. If you found out you maybe did it the wrong way. Make your wraps here. Like that. Cut off the excess. And then make sure to always tuck in that little end of your tail that's going to be sticking out. Like that. So that's the first one. On the other side, add your bead first of all if you're using your beads. And this is the one where I want it to face the opposite direction again. So about 2mm above, bend it back, and go in and make your loop first of all the way around. And then this is where, before I make my wraps to seal up this loop, I'm going to add in the previous link. Now this is where you just want to have a look, because then the way I want to add my links is, if you look at this, these two are lying in the same direction. So it's this flat one I want to add to the one that's facing vertical, basically, because that way it's going to end up with the chain itself sitting much more flat naturally. So added that in, as you can see. Then you can see how it's going to sit. It's going to sit flat like this. You can see as well the knots are the same. So we've added that link. So now I'm going to take my chain nose again, place them onto the loop, and then wrap my tail of my wire around to come down and meet the bead until I'm running out of space. Cut off the excess, and then tuck in that little tail. And then once you've done that, you've now got two links that are connected. They're nice and secure because we're using rack loops for this. So this is then how it's going to sit. So it can give a really nice look to it with that Celtic knot, and then obviously your beads kind of break it up and give a bit of colour to it as well if that's what you want. But the knots themselves could look nice with just the wire. So this is how I make the links, and like I said, you can also do them in the same direction and add jump rings in between. That's completely up to you. But that's how you make the links. So I've now kept going here, making all my Celtic knots and connected them together, and then separated out by little beads as well. And then I've ended up with my long chain. Now this is a perfect necklace length, and it'll obviously work. It'll be a nice chain actually on its own just to wear as something simple but yet a bit statement wise, but also to use as a chain for say a pendant that you've made for something. But again, a really nice and delicate bracelet as well. So this is just what I've ended up with. So this is how you make this Celtic knot style chain with your own wire. And it's quite simple really once you get the hang of it, and you can grow this quite quickly. So that's how you make this. So I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make this love and heart design on the front of a cabochon setting. And this is what it looks like. So you have your word love there with wire writing, and then all your hearts put together. And this is all made with one length of wire, so I'm going to show you how to do this. So this is the design I'm going to show you, and what I've already done is a video, a tutorial on how to make the actual setting for the cabochon. So I'm going to put a link to that in the description box below. But if you want to learn how to make